So Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon gets a royal smackdown from the appellate court, and importantly, the FBI can now resume its criminal investigation of Donald Trump's possession of stolen classified documents. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So a unanimous 3-judge appellate court panel just told Judge Aileen Cannon, in very real terms, you're not really very good at this judging thing. Let's take a quick look at some of the headlines. This from Politico: Trump suffers setback as appeals panel rejects Cannon ruling. This from the Washington Post: Judge Cannon ruled for Trump. Fellow Trump-nominated judges decimated her order. And this from Vox: Trump's embarrassing defeat in Mar-a-Lago special master case, Trump versus United States. And here's how Politico reported it. A 3-judge appeals court panel has granted the Justice Department's request to block aspects of U.S. District Court Judge Aileen Cannon's ruling that delayed a criminal investigation into highly sensitive documents seized from former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. The panel ruled that Cannon, a Trump appointee, erred when she temporarily prevented federal prosecutors from using the roughly 100 documents marked as classified recovered from Trump's estate as part of a criminal inquiry. The court says Trump, quote, has not even attempted to show that he has a need to know the information contained in the classified documents, the panel ruled in a 29-page decision. Okay, let's talk about the 3 main takeaways from this 29-page ruling from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. First, the appellate court resolved this case at light speed. It was just Tuesday that Trump's defense team filed a 40-page brief trying to argue that Judge Cannon's ruling should not be reversed. Let's leave it undisturbed. The very next day, a unanimous 3-judge panel said, Judge Cannon's ruling is reversed. The FBI, the Department of Justice, the federal government can resume its criminal investigation of Donald Trump as it pertains to the classified documents he stole from the government and unlawfully concealed at Mar-a-Lago. Takeaway number 1 is that the appellate court met the urgency of the moment. It seemed to appreciate the need to timely resolve issues concerning Donald Trump's potential criminal responsibility and the need to protect our national security in real time and assess the damage Donald Trump may have done to our national security. Second takeaway: this was a unanimous decision by 3 appellate court judges. 2 of them, Donald Trump appointed. 1 was appointed by President Barack Obama. But the good news is, we've been looking at the handiwork of Judge Aileen Cannon, and frankly, it makes us question the quality of the federal judiciary, particularly when you have judges like Judge Cannon, entirely unqualified to hold this position that Donald Trump bestowed upon her. Judge Cannon, who was crammed down America's throat during the confirmation hearings and was confirmed by Mitch McConnell's Senate after Donald Trump lost the election. Things like that can really cause us to lose faith in the legitimacy of the federal bench. But now we have a 3-judge appellate court panel, 2 Trump appointees, that unanimously rejected the nonsense, the unsupportable decision handed down by Judge Cannon. So that should at least in part restore some of our faith, some of our confidence in the fairness and the independence of the federal judiciary. Third takeaway, this was a direct, brutal repudiation of Judge Cannon's ruling, of her legal acumen, by these three appellate court judges. I will tell you, I argued many, many appeals in my 30 years as a prosecutor in military appellate courts, civilian appellate courts, local appellate courts, federal appellate courts, including the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And in my experience, appellate court judges are often reluctant to just completely call out a judge as being, way out of bounds. They'll often find gentle euphemisms to observe that, the judge could have made a different decision based on the evidence. That is not the way these three appellate court judges approached their review of Judge Cannon's ruling. So let's look at just two short passages in this 29-page appellate court ruling to get a flavor of what the appellate court judges said and thought about Judge Cannon's ruling. First of all, they said, the United States, the prosecutors, the Department of Justice, the United States argues that the district court, Judge Cannon, likely erred in exercising jurisdiction to enjoin the United States' use of the classified records in its criminal investigation and to require the United States to submit the marked classified documents to a special master for review. We agree. In other words, we agree with the prosecutors that the judge erred in even exercising jurisdiction over this matter and trying to stop the Department of Justice from investigating the crimes of Donald Trump as they relate to these classified documents. One other example of the language the appellate court used. The United States is substantially likely to succeed in showing that the district court abused its discretion in exercising jurisdiction concerning these classified documents. That's the appellate court saying, we don't really need to hear much more. This is a limited hearing at this point, but you know what? The United States is likely to succeed in showing that the judge abused her discretion in exercising jurisdiction concerning these documents. That is blunt language. That is the appellate court calling out a district court judge as not being very good at this judging thing. So I applaud the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals for its straightforward, blunt assessment of just how bad Judge Cannon's ruling was. And friends, let's finish up with Donald Trump's fantasy world of declassification. You may have seen a clip from the interview. He told Sean Hannity, well, I can just think something is declassified and poof, it is. And then I can send those documents to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever. Boy, I sure would like to know what Donald Trump meant by I can send those documents to wherever. That's precisely why we need the FBI investigating this at light speed to see where Donald Trump sent them, who he showed them to, how he compromised our national security. And that investigation is now up and running again, full speed, thanks to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals overturning Judge Cannon's stop work order. So Donald Trump tells us that he can just imagine in his mind that things are declassified, and poof, they're declassified. Well, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals opinion had a little something to say about declassification as well. Plaintiff Trump suggests that he may have declassified these documents when he was president, but the record contains no evidence that any of these records were declassified, and the declassification argument is a red herring because declassifying an official document would not change its content or render it personal. In other words, that wouldn't magically convert it into the personal property belonging to Donald Trump. They still belong to the government. They still belong to we the people. And whether he thought them declassified or not, he was still unlawfully concealing them at Mar-a-Lago. But let Donald Trump continue to talk about his magical thinking regarding declassification, because his every word is admissible evidence as a statement of a party opponent. When he says things like, maybe I declassified them magically in my mind, what is he actually communicating to us? And ultimately, when we introduce those statements at his trial to the jury, that he didn't declassify anything. Because if he did, every copy of the document would have to be stamped declassified. Every copy of the document, either hard copy or in electronic form in the government's possession, would have to be marked as declassified. None of that happened. And by Donald Trump saying, well, yeah, I thought magically that everything was declassified, so it was, what he's communicating is, I didn't actually declassify anything. And yes, those statements will come back to haunt him in a courtroom when we are trying this case to 12 citizens in a jury box, sitting as the conscience of the community, listening to all of the evidence of Donald Trump's guilt. And they will be persuaded beyond a reasonable doubt to hold Donald Trump accountable for his crimes, because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.
Joining me now is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, we just shared that you had really pressed in the written questionnaire for a written version of this, a written answer here, not just verbal. Can you help us understand, people watching right now, why getting Blanche to rescind Trump's so-called settlement with the IRS in a formal written agreement matters?
Well, because Blanche is a weasel, and he will weasel his way out of things that he says. If you watch his answers to our questions, they're always hedging. They're always leaving a little opening. He wants, I think, to be able to come back and say, I have technically complied with your requirement that we're not going to have this weaponization fund go forward, and yet find a way to be able to give the money in the fund to the January 6th rioters. He's just a very, very hard individual to trust. He's very slippery.
It is. I mean, I think you just answered my question here. I was going to ask you just like why he just won't put it in writing. It seems like it's just because he won't do it. He just wants to slip out of it. He's a weasel. Okay, let me move on to the other thing I wanted to ask you. He said that verbally that the slush fund portion of the deal was dead. He has said that the part that gives Trump IRS immunity is still alive, which is still significant. And I don't want us to kind of whistle over here. Why do you think that's still alive beyond this effort to hold up the confirmation by Cornyn and Tillis? I mean, what can be done to kill that? Or could that be part of what they try to kill here, too? What should people understand?
Well, the Trump family tax fraud amnesty scam is a very, very big deal. And it's obviously a very big deal to Blanche's former client, Donald Trump. It means a lot of money, and it means relief from investigations into whatever tax fraud he may have committed. Remember, he was found guilty of fraud related to financial declarations that he had made. So there's a track record here. So it really is a very big deal. And I hope that Senators Tillis and Cornyn are seeing that corrupt deal as a package. It really doesn't help much to carve out one aspect of a corrupt deal and let the other piece of the corrupt deal go forward. And the third piece here, Jen, is that the way this was accomplished in the Florida court has exploded in the face of the lawyers down there, including in the face of Todd Blanche. The judge's decision she sent to the New York bar authorities, which have disciplinary jurisdiction over Todd Blanche. She was so fed up with his conduct, and she found that there was a good likelihood that a fraud had been committed upon the court, which is probably the worst thing that a lawyer can do in court. It's worse than even contempt of court. So you have the disciplinary proceeding pending. You've got her fraud on the court concern still pending, and that relates directly to how this deal was cooked up. So it's really a threefer. It's the crooked slush fund, it's the crooked Trump family tax scam amnesty, and it's the fraud on the court that Trump's personal lawyer, now AG